The Grand Convention Center in New York shimmered with wealth and ambition. Inside, a summit was underway, an elite gathering of CEOs, top executives, and influential leaders who had flown in from around the globe. The air smelled faintly of expensive colognes, freshly brewed coffee, and the crisp polish of leather briefcases and shoes. On the walls, enormous banners displayed the words, Global Innovation and Leadership Summit 2025. The world's sharpest minds had gathered here to discuss the future of technology, business, and finance. Among the guests was Jonathan Cross, a man infamous in corporate circles for his arrogance and cruelty. At 47 years old, Jonathan was the CEO of Cross International Holdings, a billion-dollar empire built on ruthless deals and unshakable ambition. His suit alone cost more than what some families made in a year. His reputation was built on power plays, hostile takeovers, and a willingness to destroy anyone who stood in his way. To him, humility was weakness, and kindness was a flaw. That morning, Jonathan entered the hall with his usual swagger. Flanked by assistants, he barked orders and barely acknowledged the greetings of fellow executives. He wasn't here to collaborate, he was here to dominate. When he noticed people whispering about a guest speaker, a mysterious philanthropist no one seemed to know much about, he smirked. Another bleeding heart do-gooder, he muttered under his breath. They'll be crushed by the real world soon enough. But just outside the shiny glass doors, another story was unfolding. A woman stood at the entrance, shivering slightly in her worn coat. Her hair was tangled, her shoes scuffed, and her face carried the weathered lines of someone who had spent years exposed to hardship. She looked out of place among the polished attendees, and security hesitated before letting her through. Her name was Evelyn Hart. To the casual observer, she appeared to be a homeless woman, a nobody wandering into the wrong place. Whispers spread the moment she stepped inside. Who let her in? One guest muttered. This is a high-profile event, not a soup kitchen. People shifted uncomfortably, some sneering, others trying not to look. But Evelyn's eyes, though tired, held a quiet strength. She walked slowly, deliberately, as if she had every right to be there. When Jonathan noticed her, his lips curled in disdain. He couldn't resist. As she passed by his table, one of his assistants sneered, "Looks like the cleaning staff got lost." Evelyn ignored the comment, continuing toward the stage area where speakers were being prepared. That was too much for Jonathan. Rising from his chair, he intercepted her path. "What do you think you're doing here?" he demanded, his voice carrying across the room. Evelyn looked at him calmly, but before she could respond, Jonathan's arrogance boiled over. "People like you don't belong here. This is a summit for leaders, not beggars." And then, in a shocking act that froze the room, he slapped her across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Gasps filled the air. Attendees shifted in disbelief, some pulling out phones, others too stunned to react. Evelyn staggered slightly but did not retaliate. She simply straightened herself, met his cold eyes, and whispered softly, "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Security rushed toward them, but before they could remove her, the event host hurried onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced nervously, "please welcome our keynote speaker for the day, Ms. Evelyn Hart, CEO of Hart Global Initiatives." The room erupted in stunned silence. Jonathan froze, his smugness draining into horror. Evelyn, the woman he had just humiliated and struck, was not only supposed to be there, she was the most important person in the room. Evelyn stepped onto the stage. Her presence transformed as she took her place behind the podium. Gone was the fragile image of a homeless woman. Now she stood with quiet authority, her voice steady and resonant. "I know many of you looked at me and saw someone unworthy of being here," she began. "I know because I've lived it. I've seen the faces of people who judged me by my clothes, my appearance, and my struggles. But what they didn't see was the truth, resilience, vision, and the power to create change." She revealed her story, how she had grown up in poverty, lost everything during the financial crash, and spent years surviving on the streets. But through determination, resourcefulness, and sheer willpower, she rebuilt her life. Not only that, she founded Hart Global Initiatives, a multinational company focused on sustainable housing, clean energy, and social reform. The reason she had arrived looking disheveled was intentional. She wanted to prove a point about perception, privilege, and the hidden strength of those society overlooks. Jonathan sat in his chair, face pale, sweat dripping from his temple. People who had once admired him now stared at him with disgust. Phones buzzed with live tweets and recordings of the slap. His reputation was unraveling in real time. Evelyn continued, her words cutting through the air like a blade. True leadership is not measured by how you treat those above you, but how you treat those you believe are beneath you. Today, one man showed you the ugliness of arrogance. But I ask you, will you choose a different path? Will you lead with empathy, with courage, with humanity? Applause erupted, growing louder and louder until the hall shook with it. Jonathan buried his face in his hands, knowing his empire was crumbling before his eyes. Investors who had once supported him were already exchanging glances, considering their exits. His arrogance had destroyed him. Meanwhile, Evelyn's message spread far beyond the summit. The video of the incident went viral, watched by millions worldwide. She became a symbol of strength and dignity, her story inspiring countless people to believe that no matter how low life takes you, there is always a way to rise again. But Evelyn didn't stop there. Over the next months, she launched initiatives to support the homeless, created programs to rehabilitate struggling families, and invested in community-driven businesses. The world began to shift, little by little, as her vision spread. She had turned her pain into power, her humiliation into a platform for change. Jonathan, on the other hand, faced lawsuits, investigations, and the collapse of his company. His empire turned to dust, and he disappeared from the public eye, a cautionary tale of greed and cruelty. Evelyn's story became a legend told in boardrooms and classrooms alike. She was living proof that greatness doesn't come from wealth or titles but from the courage to rise, to endure, and to lead with compassion. And as the years passed, the memory of that day at the summit lived on. Not as the day a powerful man humiliated a homeless woman, but as the day a powerful woman revealed the true meaning of leadership.